Tesla and SpaceX owner Elon Musk making headlines again, saying this: he has a super bad feeling about the economy and wants to cut 10% of Tesla jobs. Again, according to Reuters there. Musk, though, not the only big name CEO to have this sentiment here. Take a listen to Jamie Dimon, CEO of JP Morgan and Chase, and his chilling assessment of the United States economy.
It's a hurricane. Right now it's kind of sunny. Things are doing fine. Everyone thinks the Fed can handle this. That hurricane is right out there down the road coming our way. We just don't know if it's a minor one or Superstorm Sandy or Sandy or Andrew or something like that. And you better brace yourself.
Metaphors used by there. Either way, very bleak look from a major CEO there. This coming out with a new jobs report number adding 390,000 jobs for the month of May. The unemployment rate still sits at 3.6%. That has not changed. For analysis, we'll bring in former President Trump senior economic advisor and author of Trumponomics, Stephen Moore. And there's his book as well. Stephen, always a pleasure to see you. And thanks so much for taking the time on the program here. If we could break this down, I just want to get your reaction. 390,000 jobs added, unemployment rate holding strong there at 3.6%. Your reaction?
Well, do you want the good news or the bad news first?
Let's start with good, I think, on Friday.
Well, it's good. It was a good report. I mean, 390,000 jobs, a lot of jobs. The jobs are out there right now, no question about it. In fact, we have about 10 million job openings. So if you're a worker looking for a job, they're out there. And I would advise people get off the couch and get a job while they're there, because that brings me to the bad news, which is I agree with Jamie Dimon that this feels like, the calm before the storm. When you see inflation as high as it is right now and the oil price continues to rise, which is the best lead indicator for where inflation is headed, I hate to say this, but I think this might be the last good jobs report we have for a while. And I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing negative numbers in the weeks and months ahead, because businesses are starting to hunker down. They're already starting to announce either hiring freezes or layoffs. And this is all a result of bad policies coming out of Biden. And all he's talking about is more taxes, more regulations, more price controls, when we need just the opposite.
Yeah, I'm curious to know, at what point do adding jobs make a huge impact to everyday Americans' lives? When they turn on their television or their streaming devices and they see, oh, we added a bunch of jobs. Because this was a big deal. I'm not saying it's not, but during COVID, when we lost all those jobs, when we told people to stay at home, and now we're getting people back to work, that was a headline. But the headline now is, where's inflation going? And we haven't seen that move yet. The reason being of why that's a headline is because folks are paying more every time they go to a grocery store, et cetera. Also, gas prices, again, still at an all-time high, according to AAA on average as well. So talk to me about that and how important adding jobs is versus talking about inflation, talking about how much folks are paying or how much they can afford at the gas pump.
So it's a great point. And so what's going on right now is that workers are, the jobs are out there, but the wages, how many times have I said this on your show? Wages are not keeping pace with the inflation. So month after month after month, what's happening is workers are actually getting poorer. They can buy less with their paychecks. Their paychecks are effectively shrinking because of this high inflation. And it happened again this month. And every month that happens, it means that consumers can buy less. They feel a real inflation rate, by the way, of about 15 to 20%, not 8%, because of high gas prices, high food prices, high rent prices, the things that people have to buy. That's what makes me really nervous, because when you see that big of a decline in purchasing power, now what people are doing, what so many Americans are doing, is they're digging into their savings so they can keep spending. Well, you can't keep that up. And so job number one for the Biden administration, for the Fed, has to be to bring this inflation down. But I don't see any indications of that. I mean, I saw that the oil price hit $115, $120 a barrel. Do you know it was about $65 a barrel the month that Trump left office? Those are really concerning.
This may be past your realm, but what is driving up these prices? of oil? And why are they higher? Why are they less? Why do they fluctuate?
Well, it's not just oil. It's everything that's going up virtually. But the oil price is going up. I think you know the answer to that because Joe Biden, from his first day in office, declared war on American oil and gas. And boy, he's winning that war because he's just destroying our domestic production. We're 1.5 million barrels below where we should be. I think we'd be about 5 million barrels a day higher if Trump were still president. So I think that's been a big factor here. And then I want to raise one other point that, as you know, Joe Biden had a piece in the Wall Street Journal this week saying, here's my solution to inflation. And it was basically three things. Higher taxes. How's that going to reduce inflation? Then he said price controls. Well, we tried that under Jimmy Carter in the 1970s, and it just led to gasoline lines and shortages. And then he's still talking about more government spending and more green energy. That's what created the crisis in the first place. So that's what people are we destined to have a recession? No. If we would put in the right policies right now, in Washington, I think we could skate around a recession. But everything Biden is doing right now, as you know, is doubling down on the very policies that created the crisis in the first place.
So when you look at the facts of this, as I know that you do you believe this administration is actually making a conscious effort to push this country towards green energy and away from fossil fuels?
Well, just listen to what the president said, right? About a week ago. He said, this is the transition. This is what they wanted. They wanted the transition. They want people to use less gas, and they want them to use less oil. And so the way they're pushing that on people is by making it more and more and more expensive. I mean, you saw that story, by the way, I'm sure, that some of the service stations around the country are now having to put another digit. Did you see that?
Yeah, I did.
Now they may have to go to $10. And by the way, that may seem crazy, but that's what they're paying in Europe right now. They pay $10 a gallon. I hate to say this, that may be coming to the United States. Think about that. $10 a gallon gasoline.
Yeah, and then and no one could, not everyone, I would argue, many would argue, could afford an electric car right now. And even if you can,
say so.
Right? And even if you can, there's...
Wait, are you saying you don't have $75,000 burning a hole in your pocket?
I mean, I could get a GoFundMe account. I think some of the floor crew, maybe we could pitch in and do a ride share. That's about as far as I can really go with that. But even so, I don't hear a lot of talk from this administration, even if that's what they want to push about setting up a grid that would actually support. If everyone had an electric car, there's no real infrastructure for that. I mean, there are major cities that call for don't operate your air conditioners at this certain time, only use water for this certain time. That's a whole different topic. But I want to jump back to inflation if I can. There is a moment that I'm sure you've seen Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen saying she was wrong about inflation this week. That admission, your reaction, and with that admission, what would you advise next if you were in the White House?
Yeah, I mean, look, 3 cheers to Janet Yellen for admitting she was wrong, and she was wrong, and it's done a lot of damage. But by the way, there were something like 8 Nobel Prize-winning economists who said a year ago that this wouldn't cause inflation. So, the Wall Street Journal had a great piece on this. Why, the experts were all wrong about what happened to the economy. So much for following the science. If I were advising Joe Biden, which I'm probably the last person he'd listen to, I'd say, why don't you just call a pause on this war on American energy? And why, with prices so high, why don't we just go start producing all the oil and gas we can, build the pipelines, build our energy infrastructure? Maybe 25 or 30 years from now, we can move to green energy. But right now, we can't have blackouts. We cannot have brownouts. We can't have $10 a gallon gasoline that'll destroy the economy. But he shows no inclination of doing like what Bill Clinton did and moving back to the middle away from a left-wing ideology that's done so much damage.
Final thoughts on this is, if I can with you, is recession. That term seems to be thrown around. But it wouldn't be the first time this country has faced a recession. What could you tell Americans today if a recession is on the horizon? What could you learn from the past and perhaps help American families get across that possibility?
Well, people are going to have to cut back a little bit on their spending. We've been on a spending binge in this country, and consumers now, as I said, spending out of their savings. That's a bad idea when you're heading into a recession. You need to squirrel away your resources. And then, I think that the other point is that people are feeling that they can't buy as much with their money. And so if you can get a job now, if you're on the sidelines saying maybe it's time to go out and get a job, get it now, because this may be the last month that we have a positive jobs report for a while. So that this party, unfortunately, appears to be coming to an end. And you know what's so frustrating to me? One last point. I really, truly believe that if Donald Trump were still president, the economy would be booming right now. I mean, it's all self-inflicted wounds.
Yeah, we'll leave it right there. Stephen Moore, good to see you. Thank you so much for taking the time for the viewers this morning here on this Friday. Enjoy your weekend, sir.
Have a great weekend. Take care.
Too.
Hey, I'm Rob Finnerty. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please join the conversation in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, too. Hit the bell icon to be alerted to breaking news. And remember, there's a whole lot more on Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news network. Newsmax TV, we're real news for real people.